Listen to The Time Machine by Herbert Wells. Level B1. Oxford Reading University. Part 1.
1. On a Thursday night, as was our custom, we gathered for dinner in the house of the time traveler. We sat in the living room, and the bright light of the fire reflected in our wine glasses. The time traveler was telling us about his latest scientific breakthrough, his pale gray eyes shining with excitement. "Gentlemen, I am aware that what I'm about to say may blow your mind," he said, "but I promise I am telling the truth. I believe that one can move through time just as one moves up and down in space." "You do realize that your claim has no scientific basis, don't you?" asked the psychologist. "Not necessarily," protested the time traveler. "Years of my continuous research have resulted in a great achievement," he cried excitedly, jumping to his feet. "And I'm sure I can convince you." He placed before us a small iron object which was approximately the size of a regular table clock. It was decorated with shiny little crystals on the outside. Inside, we could see a small seat and two tiny levers next to it. The time traveler smiled embarrassedly. "This is just an experimental model," he explained, "but I'm currently building a bigger machine in my laboratory." He turned to the psychologist and asked, "Please, pull the small lever slightly. I want you to do it yourself. Make sure it's not some magic trick." The psychologist did as he asked. Immediately, the tiny machine started shining with many colored lights. Then it grew thinner and thinner till it disappeared into the air. The time traveler proudly announced that it was traveling into the future at that very moment. "Do you believe me now?" he asked cheerfully, but we were unable to answer. We stared at the spot where the model had just stood. Later, the time traveler led us to his laboratory. There stood a bigger version of his time machine. Some parts of it were made of iron, and some were cut out of rock crystal. Inside it was a seat, two levers, and a clock that displayed dates instead of hours and minutes. "Are you serious?" asked the doctor. "Or is it just a trick like that ghost you showed us last Christmas?" "I am absolutely serious," replied the time traveler. "Building this machine was quite a challenge, but soon I will be able to use it and explore time. Let's meet in a week and I'll tell you more." 2. 1 week passed and we came to the time traveler's house again. The host wasn't there, but he had left us a note. "Our friend is running late. He suggests that we sit down to dinner without him," said the doctor as he read through the note. While we waited, we entertained ourselves by talking about our extraordinary friend. Nobody seemed to believe that he really could travel in time. The time traveler showed up in an hour. However, it wasn't easy to recognize him. His clothing was dirty and torn, and his hair was a mess. His face was deathly pale and marked with a bloody cut. He had a wild look of pain in his eyes. "What happened to you?" we all cried in horror. But he walked silently to the table, ignoring our confused looks. He started eating hungrily as if he hadn't touched any food in days. It seemed that an incredibly long while had passed before he spoke in a low voice. "My friends, some particularly odd things have happened to me. I'm going to take a bath and change my clothes, and then I'll tell you everything. I'm sure you will find it hard to believe. However, I must require that you listen closely from beginning to end and never say a word till I'm finished." The following is his story.
I think you forgot to like this video. Do it now to support our channel.
3. A week ago, I sat in my time machine preparing to go on my first expedition. Feeling very brave, I pulled a lever. I have to admit that time travel is not the most pleasant experience. I felt sick and lightheaded. The walls of my laboratory began to disappear slowly, and I saw the sun. However, it was not standing still, but moving across the sky again and again. Night followed day, and day followed night, and I saw snow cover the ground and be replaced by spring flowers. With every minute, I traveled many years forward into the future. Eventually, I decided to stop. I made sure there were no solid objects around me. Then, I pulled the lever and landed with a crash. I found myself in the middle of a green clearing on a hill. The year was 802,701 AD. It was pouring rain when I got out of the machine, so I couldn't see anything. When the rain finally stopped, I saw a giant statue in front of me. It was cut out of white stone and reminded me of a sphinx. Amazed, I stood there, wondering whether my ideas on time travel were sensible at all. How far has the human race gone in its development? I thought to myself. What if people have lost their human features, turning into more cruel, violent, and powerful beings? In the distance, I saw giant buildings with beautiful staircases and tall columns. The more I looked at the world of the remote future, the faster fear grew in me. Suddenly, I noticed a slight movement behind the statue. A short man of rare beauty walked up to me. He had keen, gentle features, incredibly large eyes, and neatly curled hair. At the sight of him, I realized that he could never be of any danger to me and grew relaxed at once. Fairly soon, he was joined by other little men. They smiled at me and started talking to each other. Their language flowed smoothly as a liquid. They touched me gently with their tiny hands. Indeed, something about these cheerful, childlike people made me feel confident. I tried to draw them into a conversation. I pointed to the machine, myself, and the sun, thus indicating that I had traveled through time. Suddenly, one of the little people started jumping high, pointing to the sun and the ground. Clearly, he suggested that I had fallen from the sun during the storm. I expected that in the future, I would see a civilization of advanced science and knowledge. However, by all appearances, those little beings had the intelligence of 5-year-old children. I was very disappointed. Together, we headed toward a large, fascinating building. The entrance to the building was a giant gate. Above, I saw a writing in a language that wasn't familiar to me. The stone walls were badly broken with time and weather-worn. I noticed that all the buildings were the same, partly destroyed and run down. My general impression of the future world was quite sad. It looked like a beautiful garden that was long since forgotten. The people took me to the dining room where I was seated at a table and treated to various unusual fruits. I soon learned that the diet of the little people consisted entirely of those fruits. I tried to start learning their language. My hosts taught me a few names of fruits, but it was as far as I went. I tried to keep up the educational talk, but the little people soon lost interest in teaching me.
Send this video to your friends if they like learning English.
4. After dinner, I headed toward the hill where I had left my time machine. Along the way, I noticed some other fascinating facts about the people of the future. First, I couldn't tell males from females. They all looked more or less the same. Moreover, I hadn't met a single person who appeared aged or ill. Why are my ideas about the future world so different from reality? I thought, and eventually I developed a theory. The civilization of the present day puts a lot of effort into making human life more peaceful and careless. We continuously improve our living conditions, and this has been key to our development. But in the future, I discovered the consequences of that development. In this world, the need for work and family, property, political or economic competition, or commercial trade has disappeared. The people of the future don't have to face any dangers, and therefore they have become weak and simple-minded, and this lack of strength and intelligence doesn't even bother them. Such has been the impact of our great ambitions and achievements. I was so deeply lost in thought that I failed to notice how the night fell. I came close to the Sphinx statue. My machine was nowhere to be found. Fear came upon me at once. Was I stuck in the future world forever? I hurried back to the big building and woke up all the little people shouting at the top of my voice, "Where's my time machine?" But it was no use questioning them. I spent the whole night examining the city. When morning broke, I returned to the statue's pedestal, threw myself on the ground, and cried. At last, I calmed down and started thinking. Suppose the worst, I thought to myself. Suppose the machine is lost forever, maybe even destroyed. It only means that I should keep calm and find out where I can get the necessary materials and tools. Eventually, I might be able to make a new machine. And if the machine is simply hidden somewhere, then I must try to find it and claim it by force. Suddenly, I noticed a groove on the ground that led directly under the statue's pedestal. Tiny footprints were seen on either side of it. My machine must be inside the statue, I thought. I kicked it and hit it hard with stones, but it never broke. I will surely find a way in, I determined. I explored the area searching for clues. On my way, I saw many stone wells. They appeared to be placed all around the city. I lit a match and looked into one of them, but there was no water. I could hear strange noises coming from deep underground, as if there was some kind of laboratory or factory down there. But who worked there? The little people I knew were unable to do any kind of work, and yet they wore neat clothing that had to be made somewhere. Maybe there really were factories underground.
Part 2 is coming soon. Do you want more English audiobooks with translations and transcriptions? Check out app iwa.com. You can read books and learn new words every day. And now, enjoy another English story.